Hello and welcome to the third episode of Sit Down with SymTrain, where we talk with different thought leaders in the contact center, AI, employee development, all sorts of different things. I'm your host, Liz Powell, and today's topic is going to be, is AI a threat to jobs in the contact center? It's a big topic to unpack. We're excited to get into it, and we thought there's nobody better to be talking about this anxiety-inducing topic than Jim Iyoob, the Chief Customer Officer of Etech Global Services. Jim is the author of 3 books, an award-winning CX visionary, and just all around a great human being that I enjoy working with. Thank you for joining us today, Jim.
Thank you, Liz, and it's just a pleasure just to hang out with you again. I know it's better in person, but this is going to be fun. I'm excited about this topic because everybody is talking about it all the time.
Yeah. And before we dive in, I'd love to hear from you just a little bit on why is this topic so interesting to you in particular? Because I know you were really ready to dive in here.
So I remember back in the days when they said chat. Well, first it was IVRs. IVR is going to replace all the agents. Then it was chat, going to replace all the human beings, right? It's crazy because human intelligence is needed regardless what you're doing. This machine is as dumb as a doornail until you teach it what it has to do. So, if you think about it, the first thing I would talk about, let's talk about what AI is in this contact center, right? So AI in the contact center, and by the way, we all know this because you and I travel together a lot, right? Everybody's using AI now, right? It's nothing more than big data. This is the same term we used in the 70s and 80s when we said we had big data. So now people get this AI and throw it on their logos, throw it on all their, and you see the skins out there, everybody's talking about it. So if you clarify it, think about QA first. So there's research now going on using ChatGPT, which by the way I use. I will tell you, it definitely makes my job easier, right? It definitely can help you. But what people are saying, I'm going to use that to automate your QA, right? The accuracy on it's about 52% from what the studies I read at, right? So telling you that, let's understand how the AI works first. You create this engine, you feed it data, you continuously stimulate it with more data until you get it to be 99%. So the myth, a human being is doing that, so we're clear, right? Then what happens in our world, in the contact center, things change. Products change, prices change. So guess what? Now you have to have humans to reanalyze it and re-bring it in. And then when you look at the customer service side of the business, right? When we talk about customer service, automated chats, they've been out for over a decade. I don't know if you've ever chatted with a bot. 90% of them are terrible, right? But everybody's talking about this new generative AI. But let's be honest with each other. How much do you, as a human being or consumer, because everything I do in my world has always been based on, I know it sounds egotistical, but myself, right? It's about me as the consumer, right? So, how do you feel and do you enjoy a chatbot? Some, yes. Some that were done correctly, yes, right? But not all of them are that good, right? How many people are masters at engineering? See, people know prompts that will work in AI technology. In my experience, what I've seen is it's usually coming, and I hope I don't offend half the audience, but it comes from marketing. Let's be honest, there's a reason you're in marketing. I have a marketing team, and I tease them all the time. There's a reason you're in marketing and you're not a strategist, right? Because marketing doesn't really know what the customer is doing, right? They don't really know how the customer feels. They think they do, right? You need domain expertise. And that's why we use our agents and all the scripting and all the stuff that we do and all of our things and plus, utilizing that type of stuff. Another thing I would talk about is preferences. In 2002, I think it was, I launched the first chat for Etech. And I remember I had 8 chat reps. And I remember my slide deck going into the big boy meeting with everybody, and I used to say, chat's where it's at, right? That's kind of what I said about it, right? And I always said, I had a tagline back then, which I still use today. As a brand, it's not your decision to tell me how to contact you. It's mine. Because in a global marketplace, I can buy your product from anywhere, any place, and it's all going to be based on 2 things. My preference of how I want to communicate with you and that customer experience, which is what we're going to get into today, and that journey of that interaction. Hope that helps you start us off today for our topic.
It just pushes me to all these different conversations that I want to have with you, and some that we've already had that I think will be great to bring back up today. But, I want to start with, like, you and I were both at a conference a couple months ago going through the topic of AI. And what was really, really interesting to me is that all of these folks from the contact center are walking around the floor, and I ask people, what are you here shopping for? What are you looking for? What are you trying to solve while you're here? And their answer was, I got to figure out how to use AI in the contact center. And it struck me that absolutely none of them had an idea of how they wanted to apply it. It's not like buying chat used to be, or IVR. I've never seen a tech where people come in and are interested in the underlying technology and know they should be using it, but have zero idea of what they want to get out of it or how to apply it to their systems. And I'm sure you saw something similar, but I want to hear from you. What do you think about this concept of knowing that there's something powerful out there that we can do and not having a clue of how we want to apply it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. A lot of people say, I was sent here because my boss wants me to look at AI. Do you even know what it does? So first and foremost, there is no denial from me or anybody in my staff that would tell you AI is not useful. It is, okay? There is definitely positive aspects of AI in taking it into the contact center. Number one, right use of agents' time instead of some of that monotonous conversations. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, I started my career when I had green screens. That's how old I am, Liz, by the way. We've talked about this. I had green screens. But back in the day, some of it was just the same crap every day. And we hear that all the time. An agent is stuck to their desk 8 hours a day, and they're taking the same things. Reset my password. Is this color coming blue? Right? If you can use AI to actually take the agent, get rid of some of that low-hanging fruit, and let them have more strategic conversations, and really the holy grail that I believe in today's world is building that trusted advisor relationship. Because people buy from people they like, we know that, but also being a trusted advisor so that you're not just selling a product. And I go back to like the telco days, right? 6 meg pipe, 20 meg pipe, gig pipe. Right? Now you can literally have a conversation with Liz and say, Liz, so let me ask you, how many devices do you have? Do you have kids? So now I can actually give you a real good recommendation, and that's a better experience for the customer. When you generate all this data, you can feed this data into the AI. So at a later stage, as you're continuing to build, then I tell people all the time, now you can automate some more things. Right? Because you don't want to just automate everything, and you want to use real data to automate, because your customer is going to tell you everything about you, your brand, and everything they love about you, everything you hate about you. And they're going to be the best source of this data to actually build this AI out in the contact center. And then last, and you think about two other things I would say, actually. One was, I don't believe in our lifetime, humans will go out of the picture. And a lot of people are saying they will, but they said that about IVR, they said it about chat, they said it about everything, email, fax, think about it. I don't think they'll ever be out of the picture because machines can replicate, okay? They can't create. They don't have vision and think like a human being does. So I do believe that opportunity is going to be more jobs, by the way, because the more people you can train on how to use these machines and how to actually be a partner of it, it would actually work. See, AI, in my opinion, is a complement. It's not a replacement. AI acts as a tool that actually helps your agents provide better information, sometimes real time, sometimes even suggestions. This is one of my case studies. Anybody who shops at Amazon's got an unbelievable recommendations engine, right? So I bought this, look at this, look at that. Make no mistake about it, they have 1,200 data scientists and engineers behind that machine. It's not the machine self-learning like people talk about, right? The other thing I would say is on AI-trained professionals, when Etech launched in this AI space, as you know, we've known each other for a long time. We have about 250, 300 data scientists, engineers, and analysts that actually work in these machines. Most of them were agents at one time. So I think the problem that people are not thinking like we think, AI creates job disruption. It does not do job destruction, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, right? I see the ways that we interact with AI. You're fixing processes, you're enhancing outcomes. All of this requires somebody on the back end actually deciding when we're going to use it, how we're going to use it, when is it appropriate, when is it good enough. And that's where I really think of AI as this good enough factor. And you brought up the idea that everybody has a preference of how they want to engage, and you're going to continue to get that engagement as long as you meet that preference. And the good enough factor is AI comes in when you have a match that the result you'll get is good enough for the majority of the population, or it may not fix every interaction, but it can fix enough that you're starting to move the needle, right? It's never going to give you the perfect response, the perfect thing to do, the perfect way to interact, because all of that is individualized and requires not just a machine telling you 55% of the time this is the right answer, right? Good enough is where I see AI being applied, and then humans really coming in and enhancing that to keep making the good enough factor higher.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about the evolving ways that the various roles in the contact center are using AI, how do you see this? Because I think a lot of people think just about who is the agent on the floor answering the call, and are we taking away that job? And you mentioned it's disrupting, it's not destroying. How does this influence the various roles within the contact center that maybe people aren't thinking about?
So it's a great question. So think about the typical contact center. There's a couple levels that I can talk probably for an hour on this, but let's talk about a couple of high level ones. So let's talk about quality first. Most people are listening to a handful of calls. Let's be honest. You're focused all your data and all your insights on biased information. You're using surveys, 4% response rate if you're lucky. And by the way, let's be honest. The only reason I filled out that survey is you went above and beyond, which is physically impossible. You pissed me off to the mark that I have to complain, which you're not going to do anything about it anyways. Or you gave me a $25 or $10 Starbucks gift card. So again, all biased information. When you use speech analytics AI, which, we'll talk, hopefully I get to talk about how we use it on SymTrain, because that's pretty cool stuff that we've done there. But when you're listening to all those calls and analyzing all those calls, you're actually able to solve problems, right? So in one of our, we'll call it a reservation company, we did this. He was listening to 3 calls per agent per week, 600 agents, biased information. We went in and analyzed 100% of his calls. We improved 2 behaviors across 600 agents. He brought in a 2% lift in his conversion rate, $500,000 in incremental revenue, 2,000 basis point improvement. Because now we looked at massive amounts of, back in the old days, big data. This is what's happening. You had top performers, and then you could use that information to replicate it. So that's how I talk about that part of it. The second part of AI is when you're in there, we bucketize your information. It goes into 3 buckets. You have people, you have processes, and you have technology, right? So the people's easy. Behaviors, right? That's what we think about. And by the way, one of the books I wrote does say quality is not a score, it's a behavior. And stop using scorecards. Scorecards are checkboxes. It doesn't work. So now when you talk about processes, well, wait a minute. We heard 1,100 calls that came in and said, man, I was on your website trying to order this and it didn't work. That's channel switch. So you basically spent all this money to put up a website, to put up all this self-serve, and it's broke. Okay? So your customers are calling you. So that's a process improvement, which you're able to identify. By the way, if you go to IT and say this happened, they're like, no, I can't replicate the problem. That's typically what an IT guy does. When you go to them with 504 interactions that have happened, guess what? Their boss is going to look at it now. Again, using data, right? And then when you talk about the technology, like, wait a minute. Like, and I'll talk about SymTrain for a minute. So when I had this problem, Etech launches, well, last event we had to launch 1,172 agents in 72 hours. And they had to be trained. Typical training is 8 hours for that because it's a simple process that we're doing to help a customer, right? So not tremendous amount of training, but still 8 hours is 8 hours. And then that's when, we met you guys a couple of years ago, and I've had this account for years, as you know, and we deployed this. We deployed 1,172 agents in 72 hours most of them remotely at that time, and we were able to train them in about 40% less of the time that was needed in a traditional setting, number one. Number two, since we fed all those phone calls, if you remember, we already had the phone calls. So they had real life simulation, which is what I love about where SymTrain's going. The biggest problem I see in the contact center industry is we train for 2 weeks or whatever it is in a classroom. I'm not saying that's bad because I don't want to offend any trainers. I think it's one department I never owned, by the way, for a reason. But anyway, like when we train them and we're good and we're book smart, let's be honest. Go back to human beings. I'm a human. I've never taken a live call. Guess what happens when I take that first call? I forgot everything I just learned. So that simulation role playing that our companies created was game changer, because those agents took 50, 60 AI, we'll call them AI calls, which weren't real. It wasn't a real customer, but it was real scenarios, because we had the real scenarios. They still had to go into that test environment, still had to process the claim, still had to process what was supposed to be processed. And during all that time, we were using the scoring mechanism to see how they did. What we found when we launched it, you know this because you were part of the process. Those agents that hit the phone that first day didn't have those jitters like most normal agents do, and they came out of the gate probably 40, 50% better than anybody else in as little as 4 hours of role playing. That's the cool stuff that I see. A couple other things I would hit up with. If I'm going to try to give people some advice today before you close on, because I know we're running close on time. I think job creation and skill development is probably the most underutilized task in the entire contact center world. Last year, Etech promoted 280 some odd people. We believe in that. We believe in starting and moving way up. We don't really like to hire from outside unless we have to, because we believe in learning that, right? Problem solving skills, emotional intelligence, relationship building. Machines can't do that, right? Machines are like I said earlier, replication. When you look at AI systems also, I think another thing, people think it's Ron Popeil's rotisserie, which I'm dating myself now because I'm old. But if you remember those commercials, set it and forget it. Biggest lie in the industry, one of the biggest lies in the industry. This machine needs analysis. It needs interaction with human beings to make sure it's fine-tuned. I talk to people just like you guys a lot when you're out there and it's like, yeah, I have this platform. We won't name names. I'm not getting anything out of it. Well, when's the last time you looked at it? Well, no, they set it up 7 months ago. It's still not really. I don't trust it because I don't think it's accurate. Well, how do you know? Well, I don't. That's where I talk about this skill development. I think this AI is just, we've seen it at Etech, and I know other companies, are seeing this as well. And then when you think about reskilling, so let's take an agent, right, who takes calls and reservations, maybe back office, who cares? How about we upskill them? And now let's fix the whole entire industry about, you're one of those telemarketers? No, I'm not a telemarketer. I'm actually a customer relationship manager. Let's teach them how to have a better human touch with more strategic accounts than literally saying, does this shirt come in blue and red? I think that helps the industry. I think it helps the people. Several of our directors and VPs at Etech started their careers as agents. Okay, which is again goes back into that skills development. And the last thing I would probably say is transparency, right? People are afraid of data privacy. That stuff's been solved for. Everything's redacted, as you know. We've done it together, and I think that's a big myth too, because everybody's afraid to try it because of their data, because of all the breaches. Microsoft just got breached recently. Okay, it's Microsoft. I tell people all the time. It's also like when people talk to me about, oh my God, we were down for 7 minutes. Everybody goes down. Okay, it's about how you get back up. Those are a couple things I would think about before I pass. I'm sorry I went on a rampage for you, but I apologize. I'm gonna let you go to your last one because we only have 10 minutes left. I could talk on this all day.
I know. I know. Don't worry. I picked up all sorts of different things from that I want to touch on again, and we're just going to have to continue this conversation. But one of the big things from that example that you brought up of having to stand up 1,100 agents and the response that these people are doing, it may be simple, but what was really interesting about this is the main metric that we were trying to improve working through it was how the agents' empathy was. How are they actually empathizing with the customer on the phone? And talk about a situation where you can't replicate something with a machine or with AI. When you're in the situation that you actually need to, like, machines can't show empathy. They literally don't understand what we're going through. It's an impossible skill for them to have. And thinking about jobs like that and the importance of being able to engage in the right way, that's where you use AI to prep people, not to actually do the job itself. And I thought that was a great example of something that what customers care about, what our logos and vendors might care about is not just the outcome. It does matter how you get there. And it matters that that's the preference of how we're actually going to respond. So I love that you brought up that example, because I think it shows exactly how a job that is necessary to continue to be done by a human, but that does better assisted by AI technology on the back end to help the agents perform better.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. I forgot about that one. That was a big one too, by the way. And you guys just did an amazing job with that as well. I appreciate the partnership on that one.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think about it, when I think about AI, I think that it's getting better and better at finding issues, right? It can tell you when something is abnormal or wrong or not what you're expecting it to be, but it doesn't always do a great job of providing an answer to that. And that's where we have to come in and figure out how to apply it. Does that resonate with you, or are you thinking in a similar mindset?
Absolutely, because I say it all the time, right? The machine can tell you who, what, why, where, when, maybe even why it happened. Doesn't tell me how to fix it. And the funny part about it is a lot of these tech companies that tried to sell me tech in the past, they would say, well, your coaches should know how to fix it. Yeah, they should, but if they know how to fix it, I probably wouldn't need to analyze all this stuff now, would I? And let's be honest, if we're all contact center people out there, how many people have been promoted out of a need because the business grew versus giving them the skills they needed to actually be in that job, if we're going to be honest with ourselves? Yep. So it's really important to have that human intelligence behind it. Like we have our models and our VPs and the people that actually put out the data, they will not only tell you who, what, why, where, when, because the machine told me that. We are going to put our recommendations, which is what we talk about, our human intelligence. Our human intelligence is going to tell you how to fix it. So we tell you who to coach, what to coach, and how to coach, right? Because the other thing, and I've seen this in my career, I've worked my way up into the organizations. Like I said, I started as an agent. If I'm in a leadership position and my boss says, you need to go coach Liz. You need anything? No, boss, I'm good. I might not have any clue how to do it. Let's be honest, because you just promoted me, you're counting on me, and that's the problem, and that's where AI and all this human intelligence plus artificial intelligence can really help, right? And I think that's one of the opportunities. To your point, machines, and I will tell you, I have a guy, I won't mention their name, who has been trying to sell me a speech analytics tool that supposedly can detect emotion. So you know me, Liz, you've known me for years. Let's test it out. Yep. I get on the phone, let's go, and I'm having a blast, and I'm doing what I do best, just having a conversation about something I'm passionate about. That machine has marked me as frustrated, aggravated, pissed off. I said, that's why your machine will never replace me, because it can't, to your point, detect real frustration. It can't detect real passion. It thinks I'm mad because I talk loud. Let's be honest, I'm not from Texas. I'm from the East Coast. I always talk loud. I don't need microphones when I speak. But anyway, that's another myth that's out there. If people are looking at this stuff, because people ask me, how does your sentiment work? Is it doing tone of voice? No, it doesn't work. The machine's never going to hit tone of voice right. Too many dialects. So that's another part of it too.
I think that's super interesting, and I completely agree with you. I have fun playing with them as well. My energy level also comes off as frustration because I just go all the time, and it doesn't know how to read me. But okay, I have one last question for you, and I think this is a really important one. So I think a lot of people read the recent New York Times article, and we've seen some things about literally the people on the floor interacting with customers, their concern around how AI is going to impact their jobs, what they're going to be doing in the future. So I know you use AI a lot, and you're dealing with this kind of a situation. What's your approach to communicating to your people and your teams why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what the point really is? How do you go about this?
Well, some people might not like my approach, Liz, so we're clear.
That's all right. I want to hear what you do.
my approach is easy. While AI may displace some jobs, it will also create new jobs. I read a report, I forget where it was, but I read this report that, they're saying it's going to create about 97 million new jobs. It will displace about 85 million. So to answer your question, what factor would I be worried about if I was... Here's what I would tell an agent. So if you don't want to lose your job, there's one way I can protect you from there. Continually enhance your skills, master the technology instead of letting the technology master you, and you will always have a job. That's my thing there. We did have one question come in, by the way, which I saw in the chat. Don't you think technology will continue to evolve and improve? John, great question. Yes, technology has evolved year over year over year. Jim Iyoob looking to retire in 3 to 5 years if I'm lucky, right? Because I'm already old. I have 2 grandkids. I have a beautiful, beautiful family. I want to travel the world. I don't think it'll be evolved enough to replace human beings by then, but it will evolve over time, and hopefully Jim Iyoob is retired by then. Jamie, question, what additional resources would you recommend for those of us wanting to learn more on the topic? Great question. So Liz and I, by the way, are going to have to do part 2 because we didn't even get to some of the stuff that I really want to get passionate about. You're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, Jim Iyoob. There's not a lot of them out there. That's with an I, Iyoob. I have about 200 papers out there on this topic. I'm very passionate about it. I tell all my staff here, and some of my staff is on the call, and they always tell me the same thing, because I tell them all the time, read an article a day. I read several. I get up at 5 in the morning, have my coffee, put on my news, and open up my iPad, and I read articles. When I did chat, to give you guys some examples, I didn't know chat in the beginning. Back in 2000, it was new. And me and my teams helped grow Etech's chat business to over 67% of our business at one time. I then got into this analytics, got passionate about it. I didn't wake up and become a master, right? But I read a lot about it, and I look at it from different angles, because there's no one source. People always ask me, who's the best tech provider out there? There is none. What you need to do is focus on your goal, not their goal, because their goal is to sell you. My goal is to solve my problem. What are my problems that I need to solve for? So those are kind of the things that I would think about to get information. Etech, by the way, also on our website, you're more than welcome to go out and subscribe to our newsletters. I have a CX newsletter on my LinkedIn that talks about a lot of this, and also I have podcasts. Those are some things, but I look to get information from a bunch of people as a funnel. And then I look at what I want to actually dig down deeper into. And if you're looking to actually have a career, one of the things I will tell you is most of my team are certified data scientists, certified analysts. Chandra Tobias, my VP, Johns Hopkins University. She's a certified IBM data scientist. And Manu, one of my directors, graduated from MIT in data engineering. If your career path is that, you're going to have to get some education on it. While I read a lot of articles and I know a lot, the education and the stuff that they can do blows what I can do out of the water. And that's all because they actually took that extra step to go to school. I'm trying to retire in 3 to 5 years, so I'm not trying to go back to school.
Love it. No, I completely agree with you, right? Like my career started back when I was in AI. I actually launched the first machine learning chat bot in the US, which was a lot of fun. We beat IBM Watson to market by a couple weeks. It was great. It was very different than the tech is now, right? It was a glorified decision tree, and it was AI. So is it completely different today? It is. And when you look at wanting to learn more about how this stuff all works, my recommendation is dig farther than just the results that you see, but really look at the application of what people are doing with it, and make sure that process makes sense. Ask the questions about why they built it that way and what they actually mean by AI. Because as Jim mentioned early on, a lot of people throw AI around and it's part of a lot of names. They probably can't explain to you how they're using it, and you should be able to ask intelligent questions to make sure that they actually know what they're talking about. That's really going to help you learn more about it and figure out where this whole industry sits. All right, I know we are right at time.
We got
we're going to have to do part
guys,
2.
People are asking, so guys, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to your busy days. Look for Liz and myself to put this out on LinkedIn, and also we will absolutely have part 2. Anybody can reach out to us and give us some topics else you want to talk about. I love to have a conversation with my buddy Liz.
Anytime. Thanks for joining us, Jim. We'll see you all soon for the next part.
Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed week.
Bye, guys.